a new beach house. Before we kick off, I'd like to acknowledge that this project is on the lands of the Bunurong people and to acknowledge them as the traditional owners of this site. Very special place, really excellent site on the beach. You can see where our last project we presented at the awards was Always House. This is just across the way at Summers, and where it sits on the Mornington Peninsula. Our clients, who are old mates of ours, actually, we've done a few projects for them, had spent time on this site for 20 years. This is the house that was there. And just to kind of point out this little guy too, which is the boat shed down the bottom, we'll kind of get to that. But they've been there for 20 years, and it was pretty hidden. The view is south, the north light's behind you. There's always a bit of tension on a site for that, and it rolls down to the side. So building was really tired, and in the last 20 years, our friend also had a pretty bad event where she became pretty seriously disabled, and you can see what they were trying to do to fix this house. Even though the house was pretty mouldy and old and done for, the full access is actually a really big part of the story of this house. Total 80s rah-rah at the back of it, which they kind of tried to tone down with paint unsuccessfully over the years. So this is that little promontory that goes up to the sea and gets you pretty close, like you're right on top of the beach there. You can never build there now. So from the beginning they came to us, this was always going to be a holiday place, but important for her as well, so she could spend time at the beach but not on the beach, in the house close to the beach. And they had a family holiday to Mexico, and they came back like most people do and go start talking to us about Luis Barragan. And we were looking at projects like this. They were really excited about colour, showing us things like this, and then all of a sudden we just felt really uncomfortable with this kind of brightness. So we kind of had conversations with them, and we started talking to them about Queenie McKenzie, Gija woman from the Kimberley region. This is her country, her Nolan. This is a place where they holiday as a family, had really special memories as well. So we looked at Queenie's work rather than Barragan's work, and looked at a painting she made, which is actually made from ochre, which is made from the country. And we always kind of came back to this painting to help generate the colours in this house. This is a little part of it, but it's actually something that ends up being quite strong in the development of it. And from that painting, we looked at the charred Japanese timber, which is what we chose to clad this building in. Worked extensively, closely with Peter Bartlett, talked more highly of this man on this project. Obviously tough times, COVID times, to develop what this other colour was going to be, which is going to be a strong piece of the puzzle. We finally kind of landed on this render. We looked at concrete. The client was really determined to get some off-form concrete in that. We looked at beautiful washes of paint, and as a consequence, this palette was developed very early, and it's a busy part of presenting the interior. That was one of the questions, but always anchoring it back to that richness and warmth of that beautiful painting by Queenie McKenzie. Amanda Oller is a person we work with very closely in practice, and we work with her on this to develop a landscape plan, which in our practice, interiors, architecture, landscape, they all sit at the table together. So there was a beautiful tree pansy on the site, on the north, that the clients had planted and just thrived actually strangely through construction. And we built up a kind of European coloured deciduous corridor to the north, which helped us with all of our north light. And there's a beautiful big gum tree on the other side of it. So really it's predominantly meant to be set in a native landscape with this intense coloured European deciduous forest to the north of it. Also, we're quite aware, and we're working on this with our Flinders house, is we are not like Sydney. Victoria gets a bit of this, and this is kind of a great part of it. So for her, being down there in winter, for any of us, watching those big kind of storms came through became a really lovely part of even like building up that palette to be warm and held inside, but to be able to watch the weather as well. So there's 3 levels to this house, which I'll kind of touch on briefly here, but then go into the portions of the house which make up kind of not a particularly conventional house. And you can see here in the middle is that circulation spine. So this is the arrival point. Basically the cars were where they were before. They had this kind of launching pad for the house, and then this pavilion, and then we've dropped down beneath that, and there's a lower ground floor that has a direct relationship to the lawn to the south. And there's a wing built on, which was basically an empty piece of land, quite underused and hidden by plants when we arrived there, the children. So from the outside, as a preoccupation in our practice, where we often talk about abstraction or zoomorphic forms, where you're presented with something that then reveals itself, like doesn't quite tell the whole story, so one thing is completely concealed by that, and then the other, the kind of bridge form that runs east-west across the site, is quite open, but the idea is with that deciduous forest, it will be concealed in summer. So these are some more materiality, actually most beautiful velvety timber on site. You're pretty familiar with charred timber by now. And then the transparency of this bridge piece. And you can start to see this is pretty early days with planting, but wouldn't it be nice if we could photograph all of our projects 2 years on, but we don't. And then how we kind of have this little belly that moves through and under the site, and in time we're going to be planted. So this became a key move, the turret, if you like, in the middle for a fully accessible house. And this was a real ambition to get this house as a place that she could comfortably move about. She needs a carer to do that. And there are 4 parts to this home. This was almost a way of organising the site, but also what was more appointed than other parts. So the first being the apartment, which is she arrives and she can come in and use every part of this, and that's the bridge piece, which can have all glazing to the north, so we can have sun on you in the house, but full views, and a bedroom suite from here. And this is a way into that, and some of the qualities of the interiors of those spaces, rich again, having shown you that beautiful Queenie painting, that everything was very crafted inside of this space, and the Oregon increasingly becomes a richer honey colour, so very warm and held. Part of the discussions with her were how she could feel close to the beach, but also not on show, and so the house needed to kind of protect her as much as well. You weren't just kind of on a promontory there as well, so these are more interiors to that, and moments where we developed little, they'd also worked with us in the past, so those kind of architectural details they were very invested in. Got a race. And then there's really purposeful, highly detailed doors that did the job of a balcony, that do a job of flyway, that do a job of screening. There's a lot of construction detail that goes into these pillars. So I'll just shoot through super quick. This little one's only a little one, but it's very important, part of, again, accessibility. How you might make a beautiful bathroom. Changing family, kids growing up, that's not a big kind of new one to go on about, but they would move up and through and out across that bridge and via an outside space that was close to the neighbours, and then into a wing where one day, where they can all have their lives now, but maybe bring their children as well. So a little bit less appointed. And then the flexible living downstairs, which was kind of for everyone, an additional bedroom, but really set up so a carer could live there comfortably and kind of not be in their lives, but also a place where she could go downstairs and have outside dining and be close to the sea, so there's more materiality underneath. And then the 4th part of the site configuration was working with that little remote boat shed, making it a really easy place to take a wheelchair to the very end, to almost feel like you're on the beach, and then we just do a little shack underneath that had that feeling of old beach shacks. So these are just to tell you what a trip it was, COVID, and all sorts of things happening.